Hola, and welcome to Vive Nutrition Radio, the first ever Spanglish podcast where you will hear interviews with the top minds in nutrition, performance, fitness, and health in both English and Spanish. Here is your host, expert registered dietitian, Andres Ayesta, on a mission to help you take your nutrition to the next level. Hope you're ready for this. Let's dive right in.
Welcome back, guys, to episode number 13 of Vive Nutrition Radio. Today is about sports, so we're going to talk with an expert on the field because, that's what I do. I like to bring in people that are pretty amazing at what they do in their specific sports or their specific fields in this case. And I wanted to bring an old friend and colleague and sports dietitian who's worked tirelessly for years. We're talking about a guy that has been working as a practicing sports dietitian for over 15, if not more years. We're talking about Tavis Piattoly. Tavis Piattoly is currently the education program manager for the Taylor Newton Foundation, which is actually, and we'll talk about this on the podcast, is a foundation that is in charge of providing information about the dangers of performance-enhancing drugs and dietary supplements, particularly at a high school level, but also he speaks in conferences in colleges and different places like that. He's also the co-founder and director of Sports Nutrition Education for My Sports Dietitian, which is an online sports nutrition education company that helps athletes at all levels improve their eating habits, enhance performance, recovery, and health through the guidance of a licensed sports dietitian like myself or like Tavis. He also serves as a sports dietitian and nutrition consultant for Fairchild Sports Performance in Houston, North Oak Sports Medicine, and Covington's Orthopedic. Needless to say, he is a pretty busy man. He is also the sports dietitian for he was a sports dietitian for the New Orleans Saints in the NFL from 2006 until 2013. This is back in the day when there was only probably 3 dietitians in the NFL, when now there is about 22. He was also the dietitian for the New Orleans Pelicans from 2008 to 2013, and he also served as a sports dietitian for the Tulane Institute of Sports Medicine, NFL Players Association Brain and Body Program from 2013 and 2016. He's a 15-year-old veteran, for sure, in the dietary and supplement industry, and he definitely works with a lot of people in trying to educate them on proper sports nutrition to improve performance. He's an alumni from LSU, Louisiana State University, with a Master's of Science in Kinesiology and a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics as well. I don't think I can his bio is like 3 pages long. He is a smart cookie, and I'm so honored to have him on the podcast. I hope today you enjoyed this episode with Tavis, where we're going to dive a little bit more in a broader spectrum on sports nutrition for athletes. What's the difference between the typical athlete and somebody that is not, and what are some of the biggest deficiencies and issues that we see there? And we'll dive very briefly into the supplement world and things that you need to know if you're an athlete on what you need to be consuming and what you need to be doing accordingly. Hopefully this introduction was not too long, but let's dive right in and have a conversation with Tavis Piattoly. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Vive Nutrition Radio. Today I have a very special guest. Usually they're all special, but this one is actually somebody that I've known for a while. And if you heard the introduction, he is a beast in sports nutrition, and I'm so excited to have him. So Tavis Piattoly, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm great, Andres. How you doing? It's great to be here. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to chatting.
Absolutely, man. So I think let's first talk a little bit about our background, because when is the last time, I guess, when did we connect for the first time? Because you're one of the veterans on sports nutrition. And I remember I used to look up to you, and I still do, on a lot of the stuff that you were doing with youth athletes. But, when did we connect for the first time?
Well, it's been a while. I mean, I couldn't tell you the exact year. I know it's years ago. We started chatting, and you reached out and asked some questions, and it was just, I love chatting with people and talking to people. Regardless of how long I've been in the field, to me, I feel I'm always still on the same level as everybody else, because I learn from people like you, and hopefully there's things I can do to help people learn that are just getting in the career. But I'm always looking to learn from everybody. And I know when we first started, we kind of started chatting. We had a lot of passion about a lot of the same things, and talking about youth athletes and how do we do this and how do we get into these little circles of other individuals to grow our business. So it's a lot of fun, man. It was great to meet you, and it's great to be here, and I'm honored and humbled to be here as well.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and it was actually one of the coolest things that I remember when I reached out to you first, because it didn't really take me too long to actually get in a conversation with you, which, sometimes with busy dietitians and bigger programs and everything, it was really hard. So you were like just literally straight up opened the doors and taught me a ton of stuff. So just for reference, so what Tavis helped me out to do, for those of you guys listening in. So I moved to DC for about a summer to try to build the nutrition program in a high school, high elite level athlete high school. And Tavis is super, super knowledgeable on developing programs for high school level athletes and youth athletes. And he's worked with, from people from like pro athletes and like, and the Saints. And I don't remember where you live, Tavis, again. Is it New Orleans or kind of like right outside?
I'm right outside of the New Orleans area.
Yeah. So you're very like well versed in like, kind of like Louisiana. So Tavis helped me like from top to bottom try to build that program, and kind of gave me like the whole roadmap for it. And it was a program that actually, I don't think not many people know, but it's actually top ranked. It's a program that is ranked right now top 5 in the nation. So definitely something that really mattered a lot. So, well, first of all, thank you. I definitely like to thank you for that, because I never got a chance to do that. So, but let's maybe chat a little bit about your roots, man, because I'm super curious as to what got you started on sports nutrition, and how did you come to become to what you are today, I guess, like, from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I love telling this story because I think stories kind of really keep people engaged. I wanted to be a pediatrician, but partying and pre-med are not really a good combination at LSU. So I realized after that first semester, when I was on probation for having a 1.8, and my mom goes, you know what, if you don't get your stuff together, you're going to be done. I'm not, you're going to have to find a way to go to college on your own. So I was like, all right, let's get my act together. So I was like, all right, pre-med's probably out of the question, because, you screw up a little bit, you don't probably finish with a 3.5, 3.8 or whatever. You're not getting into med school.
Yeah.
So I was just like, well, what am I going to do with my life? So I was flipping through a curriculum book one day, and I just saw sports nutrition. And, just to kind of take a step back, when I was in high school, I played high school football, and I was about 260 pounds, offensive lineman, just a big guy, always ate just a ton of food. My parents didn't, back then we just didn't talk about diet, nutrition, any of that stuff. I mean, people did crazy diets in the 80s and, in the early 90s, but I just ate. I ate when I was hungry, and, ate a lot of fast food, big guy, but my parents didn't know any different. So I lost a bunch of weight before I went to college. I lost about 40 pounds that summer, just completely eliminating fast food. So at least I had an interest in nutrition. My self-esteem was boosted. I felt better. I actually had girls like look at me, I thought, for a change, as opposed to in high school. But really finding that sports nutrition in the curriculum book was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like nutrition. I love sports. Let me go take a class. And, walked into human ecology class 1,000, and it was like 100 people in the class, and like 97 of them were girls. And I'm thinking, gotta be the wrong class. There's no way I'm in the right place, but it was in the right place. And I took a few more nutrition classes and loved it. And then, got my degree in nutrition. Didn't get an internship the first year because my GPA from that first year was really, wasn't great. But I did a lot of volunteer work with a hospital. I went to grad school, got a master's in exercise science, got a call back from a place where I did a lot of volunteer work that was also an internship program. And they had 2 spots, and they're like, hey, you want a spot? Sure. Took the spot, did my internship, became a dietitian, and then worked in pediatrics for a year. A colleague of mine called me, and she said, hey, we got a position open for a dietitian at our fitness center in New Orleans. And this is a fitness center owned by a large hospital system, so multiple fitness centers. Had a chance to really get into the sports world, and then was asked to do some work with Tulane Athletics, which really helped me get my foot into the world of sports nutrition in 2002. And then in 2006, the Saints asked for me to maybe work with them as a consultant. So I was able to work with the Saints for 8 years as their sports dietitian consultant, the Pelicans for 6. And, really at that time, just developed a passion for the high school athlete, because I started getting calls from parents, hey, can you do this? And speaking at athletic trainer conferences and working with teams. And I met an athletic trainer and started a business with him, which led to where we are today with some things we'll probably discuss later. So just started realizing that, working with pro athletes is great, but there's a much bigger problem to solve in the world of nutrition when it comes to youth athletes, because there's so many of them that let's figure out how to do that. So I really love a lot of the work I do now. I work for a company called the Taylor Hooten Foundation, where I travel and speak about the dangers of appearance and performance enhancing drugs, do a lot of dietary supplement education on safety, sports nutrition. I teach grad school for Concordia University, and also kind of have a private practice where I work with high school, college, and pro athletes on designing nutrition programs for them.
Wow. Yeah, this is the reason why we're recording this podcast at the very late night hours, because you're definitely a busy guy, man. It's funny that you mentioned this, because you and I have a lot in common, and we didn't even know. Because, well, if I tell you briefly my story, it's kind of similar to yours, because I wanted to go to med school. My problem was not that I was partying too much. The problem was that only 30 people were accepted into a 10,000 student test that you were supposed to take, and I got 300, and I of course I was a little turned down by it, but I was also an athlete, just like you were, soccer, not football, but they told me about the sports nutrition class. But what actually was the funniest thing when you said that you walk into a classroom with 100 people and 97 were girls, because that's exactly what happened to me when I went to nutrition school for my first day. Literally walked into the classroom and I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm in the wrong place. And still the same way. I mean, there's a lot of male dietitians, but still it's a female predominant career. So that's really interesting to hear that, man. So definitely you come a long way, and you worked with, what's really interesting about you is like you work from, professional athletes. Like, you were working with the Saints at the time that I was graduating high school. Let's just put that into perspective for all of you guys. So he definitely has a lot of experience. So, and one of the really interesting things is how you kind of switch your not mentality, but more of like your focus towards youth athletes, because I definitely agree with you into the fact that we need to be able to impact this population more than the professional athletes, because that's where they kind of start. So if we started chatting about developing the youth athlete, like I guess like the first question I wanted to ask you, how is an athlete, how does he or she changes through like their development stages, from like when they start started playing sports, like, maybe let's say 10 to 15 years old, up until like going into college, and what role does nutrition play in that moment for that specific person, whether it's a female or a male?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I look at it just like with phases of training. Or if you look at the trans-theoretical stages of change, that contemplation stuff, because really nutrition, like when I actually spoke to a big soccer team yesterday, and one of the things I do in my talk is really we talk about all the different things that impact performance, right? Because there's so many things that are going to impact performance, and performance is a big word, because when someone says they want to increase their performance, my question to them is, what does that mean? Like, tell me, what do you mean you want to increase your performance? Do you want to hit more home runs? Do you want to throw more touchdowns? Do you want to run faster? There's so many different things that can be measured and can't be measured. And nutrition, we can't really determine how it directly impacts that. So, from the youth level, it's really trying to figure out where are they with their current nutrition. Most kids at 10, 12, they're not thinking about their diet being important when it comes to nutrition. Even 15 and 16 and 17-year-old kids are not even really putting nutrition as the number one resource or number one level of importance for their diet. They're thinking, I got to train more. I got to go, do an extra lifting session, or I got to go spend another hour in the cage, or whatever that is. I need to hire a private trainer now. I'm already doing 2 hours at school with the strength coach. I'm going to go get another trainer. Whereas, man, if they just thought about where does nutrition fit into that puzzle, because performance is a pretty complex puzzle. And, nutrition to me, and probably to you, is really the catalyst that fuels everything else. Because what I show in my diagram is, when your diet is fairly good, we don't know what optimal nutrition means, because there's really no like, oh, if you just do this is the key, the best diet for everything. Mm-hmm. That's, everyone's trying to sell you some kind of diet or program. And honestly, we got to figure out what works for that individual. But we do know when we're eating well-balanced a diet, whether that's a combination of lean protein and healthy carbs and whatever, fruits and vegetables, you're going to have better energy. You're going to feel better. You're going to reach your body composition goals, which means you're probably going to be a little bit stronger if you're eating the right balance and the right amount of foods, which probably means you're going to improve the level of practice and how you perform, which is going to translate to probably better practice and performance on the field. So to me, I try to at least educate these kids to say, hey, all these things that you're doing are important, but without good nutrition, it's going to be hard to get to that piece that you're trying to accomplish, or whatever that outcome is. So nutrition's a habit. A lot of things we do are habits, and we have a certain outcome we're trying to accomplish. So looking at the different phases with the youth, it's really, our young kids are not really thinking about nutrition. And a lot of that comes from their parents. As they get older, at the collegiate level, unless they have a full-time sports RD at a major university or wherever they're participating, they're still probably not putting a lot of value in their nutrition. But when they get to the pro level now, we've seen such growth in our industry that I think we have 20 or 22 full-time sports dietitians in the NFL, where when I was a consultant in the league, or when I finished with the Saints in 2013, there was like maybe 3. So yeah. The value that people are now putting on nutrition is huge compared to what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's huge, man. And one of the things, because I work, work with mostly professional and collegiate athletes, because at ASPE, which is, my full-time job, we do have NFL combine programs and MLB off-season programs. But one of the key things that happens to me all the time, and I'm sure you've seen it a million times, is when these NFL combine athletes come in, they have no clue as to what, basic nutrition concepts, like, on what is a protein, what is a carbohydrate. And I definitely think this is rooted in their childhood. These are kids that were either coming from, poverty areas, obviously not a whole lot of income, and all they were fed was just obviously that kind of fast food diets, just like even you. And that's not necessarily have anything to do with the social status or anything like that. But I think it sounds like definitely it's something that starts in their childhood, and not only the lack of education, but sometimes obviously, like you're saying, starting with the parents. So what do you think it's like the biggest, I guess, like the gap that we're missing in the nutrition at that point? What is like kind of like the first step that we need to take at that point to fix that? So once these kids actually come to collegiate age, they're more prepared to obviously kind of endure a lot of these different things, because especially professional athletes, like they're going into pretty rough waters at that point. And a lot of times their career gets shortened because of the fact that, they start breaking down because, you can only do so much, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great question. I think it's really a tough way to figure out how do we solve that problem? Can we build a curriculum in the school system to where nutrition's an elective? We don't have enough people to teach that at every school. That, it's probably going to be what we would look at that curriculum to be. But could we start implementing more health and wellness type programs that would involve more nutrition? I don't know what's being done in the youth level. I don't remember really having any education on nutrition when I was young in high school. So is there a way to develop a curriculum? And myself and my business partner for our online business, we're actually looking at ways to build a model right now that would help service high school programs or even college teams that don't have and can't afford a sports dietitian. We're looking at ways to build a model that would actually put nutrition services in that school and link them with the sports dietitian to where they can have access to somebody.
That's definitely big. I think we just need to start obviously with that educational component. And when I do my talks, obviously with that the youth level athletes, it's those simple concepts, and like you said earlier, is helping them connect the dots. For me, I think that's just the most important thing, because when you make them see the fact that, hey, like nutrition is going to help you, like I said, hit more home runs, especially when you're talking to a lot of kids. And you get them to understand that, oh, you just need to eat your vegetables. But what's the reason behind you eating your vegetables? Oh, because like it's providing all the antioxidants that you need to be able to recover so you can, prevent injuries and you can play more games. Oh, that makes more sense. So it's creating those aha moments for kids so they understand the importance of it without having to feel they're being pushed to obviously doing or eating the kinds of foods that mom and dad are always kind of like making you eat. And sometimes, that's not always the case, of course. So I definitely think education is a big component for sure.
Absolutely.
I guess like another thing, now we're diving more into the details of nutrition. Like, I guess like the first thing I wanted to know as to kind of like how the systems that you kind of have in place when you're evaluating or assessing an athlete that you're consulting with. So let's say, for example, that you have, let's just say a 16-year-old football player, lineman comes in with weight problems. What are some of the things that when you're sitting down with that person, with this kid, what are some of the things that you're looking at, that you're assessing in that athlete, and what's kind of like the course of action that you usually take? Because most of these kids come with the same kind of background, the same kind of conditions, or the same type of goals, especially depending on the position that they're playing. So what are some of the things that you're looking at specifically? Yeah,
I have all my clients, regardless of who they are, or what their goals are, fill out the same forms. So a brief assessment, obviously their measurements. I want to know a little bit about, their history, the medical history. I asked them a few questions about their diet in regards to what do they think they do well? Where do they think they can get better? I want to make sure I have an activity log. I want to see what their week looks like. I want to see how much activity they do every single day. So for example, because when I design a nutrition plan for someone, it's not a 1 calorie fits all. In some cases, I have 3 to 4 different eating schedules and 3 to 4 calorie goals for an individual because they're doing that much different type of work. Monday, Wednesday, Friday may look the same in regards to energy output. Tuesday, Thursday may look the same, but different than Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Saturday, Sunday may be completely different because they might be off. So, for example, if a kid has a 2.5 hour football practice and a lifting session on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's going to be probably their high volume calorie day. Whereas if they're off on Saturday, Sunday, they eat less. So they shouldn't be eating the same amount every day. So I have them do a food log for about usually 2 days. I mean, getting them to do more than that is going to take a long time, and I'm going to lose them as a client. 1 or 2 days is good because what I want to look at are patterns. I want to look at when they eat, what they eat, and how much. I don't care if it's accurate. I just want to get an idea of what they're doing. And the first thing I look at is meal timing. And then once we sit down, I ask a bunch of questions because my goal is to kind of put myself in their shoes. And I want them to take me through the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed so I can kind of see what a day looks like. And then tell me about their weekend as well. How does it differ from a weekday? Because the school days are all pretty much structured, unless they're in 2 or 3 different sports, which is rare. I mean, kids are in 2 sports, but rarely simultaneously. And then we look and say, okay, what are the deficiencies in their diet? What is one thing? I can't overwhelm them and say, let's do this, that's, and this. Let's try to pick 4 different things and work on that. No. Let's pick one thing that is probably the one thing. If we just start working on this, it's probably going to help change the outcome. And sometimes I ask them that question. What is one thing, if you started doing this tomorrow and you did this for 2 months and your goal is, let's say, weight loss, how would that impact weight loss? And it gets them thinking about what they can do a little differently. And then, after that, we spend about 45 minutes to an hour together. If it's a minor, obviously I have their parent with me because with a young athlete, parents are critical for their success. Because these kids are not buying the food, they're not cooking the food for the most part. And especially if mom is there, then there's a higher probability that child's going to have a lot of success. I mean, I have a daughter, but typically dads are more concerned with getting their kids to practice and then performing well, where mom's more concerned about their health care. So if mom's involved, the chances of that child having success is really high. So after we really look at what they're doing, then it's talking about what's the action plan. And let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say we have that overweight lineman, and I see that he eats very little for breakfast. He eats the school lunch, and then he doesn't eat again until after football practice. But he's eating so much after football practice because he hasn't eaten much during the day. So that's an easy fix, at least for me to say, look, Here's why you're overeating so many calories between 6 and 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock at night is because your gas tank's empty. If we move a lot of those calories from at night to spread them out and increase your calories earlier in the day and eat more often, you're going to eat less at night, but you're still going to eat enough to where you can help your body recover. So it's just getting them to understand some simple principles of nutrition. And once we put those principles in place, obviously there's other things we talk about on the combination of meals and the quality of food. And, I always talk about the purpose of food. Why are fruits and vegetables important? And that sounds so elementary, but it's like, hey, these things can maybe help the body heal faster. Inflammation's maybe a little bit better. And I have a handout. I give everybody a nutrition manual. And inside of that, we talk about carbs, but I have a list. It says state championship carbs, district championship carbs, missed the playoff carbs. And
that's awesome.
It really just kind of shows, look, eat the state championship carbs 70 to 80% of the time. Eat the other ones maybe 10 or 20% of the time. So there's no food off limits. There's no magic food. There's no such thing as a superfood. I hate when I see all superfoods.
Yeah,
it's just like, look, no food magically makes you super, especially overnight. But it's just focusing on habits. Everything I do is really about habits.
Now, and I love that but one of the things that I'm being experiencing a lot, especially in like the older youth athletes, it's a lot of the influence of the fad diets in some of these kids. For example, I had a baseball talk very recently where these kids are starting to talk about things like vegetarianism, veganism, intermittent fasting, ketogenic diets, and that is something that I've never seen before. So of course, since it's nutrition and like the whole fitness and the social media aspect of things is growing so much, they're getting more bombarded with a lot of those topics. So what are your thoughts on that? And how do you usually like approach athletes that come to you and tell you like, oh, I want to try this, that I heard it's like, I need to stop kind of like eating and then just have like one ladder or like massive meal at the end of the day or something like that. What's usually your response?
Yeah, I mean, the first question, if they want to try something, I'm just going to say why. Tell me what is it that you want to do this for? And then we talk about what their goal is and who they are. I mean, most of the kids that come to me, they're like, I want a six pack. And then my question is, well, do you want to be a physique competitor or do you want to be an athlete? So are we eating for performance or are we eating for being a beauty pageant contestant? Because that's what, bodybuilders are, to me, that's a whole different topic, but that's a beauty pageant. That's not an athletic sport by any means. So I get them thinking about that. It's like, what's the purposes? If you want to go, and I had an Olympic track athlete. I used to work with a girl that was probably the fourth or fifth fastest 100-meter sprinter in the world. And she went from a traditional meat-based diet, eating animal protein to, hey, I want to be a vegan. Okay. And I'm not going to sit here and try to talk you out of it. I just want to know why. And then she says, well, for religious purposes, great. That's fine. We'll talk about the pros and cons, just like any diet has pros and cons.
Yeah.
And see, I put together a vegan plan for her. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, she just was like, I don't feel great. And, and I think things take time to adapt for people. This is when you're an Olympic athlete, you don't have time for trial and error. It's really, you have time between your next Olympic trials, but you have to qualify to get to those next levels, and you don't have time to really mess with your performance. So it's just asking questions for me to get familiar with why they want to do things, and then presenting them with the pros and cons, and
letting them make the decision, right? Yeah.
Now, if it's, for example, let's get crazy, and I'm a high performance athlete, and I want to go from eating carbs to doing keto, then I'm going to sit here and present the science and say, here's what the science says. From a high performance glycolytic athlete, it makes absolutely no sense to do that right now.
Yeah.
But if that's your choice, I'll help you do that. But at the same time, I may not if I think it's going to negatively impact their health or their performance or whatever that is. Like wrestlers, not to get off, not to talk, be too long-winded, but wrestlers that I want to lose 30 pounds, or my coach says, I'll be like, absolutely not. I said, I am not going to help you do that. That's risky. That's dangerous. And here's why, et cetera.
Yeah, you provide the facts, you provide the education, helping them understand the why, and of course, but that's what it comes down to. That's what nutrition counseling is, helping them come up with their own conclusions and helping them come up with their own decisions based on the facts that you're presenting to them, which is really kind of what differentiates us dietitians from a lot of people that just kind of push on things like, oh, you want to do this? Cool, let's do it. Without really necessarily going into the details of it and whether or not it's going to be something that's going to be beneficial for performance, which is the biggest thing for sure. So definitely that's a really important topic. Now, if you switch gears into something that you obviously are super knowledgeable about which is actually supplementation, and it's a huge conversation among athletes, and I see it often because of the fact that it's $1 billion, almost $1 trillion industry, but particularly in high school. So, what do you think is the biggest problem nowadays that you're seeing with supplementation among high school athletes, or just in general? And what's really happening with these athletes, like taking supplements or doing a lot of these different things without necessarily having a lot of education on it?
Yeah, I mean, they think, unfortunately, a lot of these young athletes are turning to supplements thinking it's going to solve a problem because of their insufficient diet intake. I mean, they're leaning to that place because of their diet. Their diet is the factor of not reaching their goals. They don't see their muscle mass improve, or they're not getting stronger. So they think, number one, that's going to solve a problem. Or they see somebody on the team or in the locker room using something and they think, oh, John's getting stronger. What are you taking? It's never what are you eating. It's always what are you taking? And honestly, there's no supplement. There's no legal supplement that's going to acutely solve a problem. I mean, creatine probably has the best effect when it comes to if you're trying to build muscle, build lean mass, even help your body recover. Creatine is the most widely researched product. That's a whole different topic in its own to talk about, all that. But creatine probably has the most effective way to do that in a short amount of time. Other than that, I mean, there's really nothing that's going to magically do that. But I do have a lot of concerns with a lot of our young athletes because, number one, you can't trust the supplement store staff knowing supplement safety and supplement education. We've seen that in the data. I've seen that with kids I work with. A lot of these young kids are trying to jack on pre-workout supplements and get all hyped up. And a lot of these products are containing banned substances that would cause positive testing at the collegiate and professional level. So if we can get these young athletes to understand the role of food, then they won't rely on supplements. And I'm not anti-supplement. There's certain things that have incredible science to support using them. And I have my major league players on a variety of different supplements that have science to support them. But for the 15 or 16-year-old kid, we just got to figure out, if they're not eating breakfast and they need 4,000 calories a day and they're eating 2, creatine's not going to help them. They're going to be losing weight anyway. I mean, it might help reduce a little muscle damage. So it's just, again, as you mentioned, Andres, it's going back to education. But unfortunately, we don't have enough people like us to educate the 10 million high school athletes out there.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to the fact that their education, they obtain it from a GNC store, which it's obviously sad.
Well, and here's another problem too, is everybody's a supplement expert today. I mean, I say everybody, a lot of people are distributing these damn things and jumping on multi-level marketing companies and wearing this branded t-shirt saying, this builds champions and that and the other thing. And it's like, these people that are selling these products are absolutely clueless. They don't have the first understanding of what a supplement does. And then I ask them one question, they can't answer it. And it's like, why are you selling supplements? You don't know anything about these products. And it's no wonder why we have a complete circle, a Ferris wheel of confusion, because that's just the industry we deal with.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because it's nutrition. And I always say it, nutrition always comes first, supplement always comes second when they're needed, and so that's a key thing. And I don't, for those of you guys listening in, first, before you even jump into thinking of what kind of supplements to take, first evaluate your nutrition, like Tavis is saying. Look at what you're consuming right now and see if there's any gaps that you're missing. And first, try to figure out a way to meet it with nutrition. And then we can have a conversation about supplements. Now, Tavis, this is a question for you. So as of today, though, let's say that, granted that nutrition is adequate. So let's say you're dealing with an athlete that you've been working with for a while. Let's say now we're moving him up and let's say he's an 18 to 19-year-old, maybe going into college or so. And he's wanting to get a little edge over his opponents and you think new supplementation may be adequate. as of today, what do you think, what kind of supplements you feel are safe, and maybe recommended for this athlete? And I know you mentioned creatine was one of them, but I want to get your thoughts on what are some of the supplements you feel like have enough research to kind of support their efficacy and they're also safe for some of these athletes.
Yeah, I mean, even even 14 and 15-year-old athletes, so whether they're 14 or they're professional, I always start each of those on a multi, and I'm a big fan of Thorne Research. I think they have the gold standard multivitamin for their daily nutrients or their AM and PM.
I agree.
And then a high-quality triglyceride-based omega-3, a fish oil. I think those are two good foundations. Number one, the multi is because most people are going to not eat enough balanced nutrition where they're getting all their micronutrients anyway. And it's very difficult unless we do a blood test. It's going to be hard to really evaluate that. So that's the reason for at least the multivitamin. 2, omega-3, we're typically deficient in this country. We have an omega-3 index average of about 4%. It should be 8%. So that means there's a lot of inflammation. And we saw that in college athletes, the omega-3 index score is like 3.8 to 4. It should be 8. So that supplement, and I personally take 6 to 9 grams a day, which is a pretty hefty dose. But I try to recommend at least 2 to 3 grams, about 3 grams with a lot of my young athletes, just to kind of maybe help offset their diet, because our diet is so rich in omega-6 that if we're not consuming enough omega-3 to balance it out, we're gonna have a tough time recovering as fast as we need to. And obviously, we'll get that from the foods we eat, from things like fresh fruits and veggies and the right type of lean proteins and carbohydrates. But if we're not getting enough omega-3, and you're not going to get enough from flax and all these other plant-based omega-3s because it doesn't convert to DHA and EPA. Mm-hmm. So those are two that I pretty much religiously use. If it's someone like a baseball pitcher, we always throw turmeric extract or curcumin as an anti-inflammatory just to help with shoulder and elbow inflammation. If it's athletes that are really high performance and training at a very intense level, we throw creatine in there. And I typically am a creatine supplementation believer in post-workout as muscle recovery and replacing the plasma levels from what some of the newer data has shown. And then outside of that, I mean, a few things we're starting to maybe look at is NAD, nicotine. Not nicotine. Yeah, well,
niacin.
Niacin. Riboside, niacin. So that's another thing that's from a cellular production, maybe slowing the improving DNA replication. I don't use that a lot. I mean, maybe CoQ10, sometimes probiotic, but now some data is showing not taking a probiotic every day is not good. But one thing I forgot is vitamin D. Obviously vitamin D, a lot of deficiency in most of us, especially if we're not outside. So, a good core multi, omega-3, vitamin D, and then depending on the individual in the sport, we might add a few things like creatine, turmeric extract, maybe beet powder if it's an endurance athlete. So there's a few things out there that have good science to truly support, warranting the use of those products.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly the same kind of arsenal that I usually use with a lot of my athletes. And omega-3s, for those of you guys listening in, like you also need to think about, and this could be an entire podcast conversation on the quality of omega-3s and a lot of those different things. But when Tavis said that, he's consuming 6 to 8 grams or some of these athletes, like, 2 to 4 grams, depending on the person, just for you to understand what that level is. So usually if you get like a really good quality, and again, this is not just like the typical Walmart brands, it's a good quality omega-3s, you're typically consuming closer to maybe 2 capsules, anywhere between, correct me if I'm wrong, Tavis, anywhere between 600 to maybe 1,000 milligrams, which is not even barely a gram. So we're talking about obviously increasing the dose at a higher level compared to what it says in the bottle usually, or sometimes when you're talking about the liquid version, which you're taking like teaspoons or stuff like that, then we're talking more of, a good amount, like maybe let's say like 2 teaspoons or so to be able to get to that dose, correct?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. I just kind of wanted to get an idea on that so people listening know what, the 2 to 3 or 6 to 8 grams would look like. Now, as one of the things that a lot of people are going to ask after this podcast, I'm sure, so I want to make sure that we talk about this a little bit, is the contamination of supplements and how to choose a good quality supplement. Because especially in athletes, we're dealing with the whole issue with banned substances, and sports organizations obviously are being more cautious about this, particularly MLB, which now only accepts NSF certified supplements as part of like their programs. And we can talk about that in just a second. But what are your thoughts on or basically how do you recommend athletes to pick their supplements to make sure that they're choosing reputable brands from companies that have a good reputation and they're going to sell products that are quality, not necessarily just something that may flag them in a blood test or something?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, pro athletes should never test positive for a banned substance. I mean, they have all the resources to avoid that, but it does happen. So, as you mentioned, NSF. I mean, if you stick to third-party certified products, you're not going to test positive for a banned substance. But unfortunately, some of these athletes get aligned with someone that puts a bug in their ear and says, take this product or take this brand and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, you never know what's in that. So first of all, how do products become adulterated, is either number one, the manufacturer is allowing banned substances. And let's keep in mind, banned substances, there's illegal substances that the FDA actually is banning from use, like let's say DMAA, which you will still see in product. I know a person that in Louisiana that is selling a pre-workout with DMAA, and people are like, well, how do they still get away with that? They don't have a website; they have a Facebook page, and they're only selling this stuff locally. So it's not like they want to be a big company and well known because they'd go to jail. So either people are deliberately getting raw materials from China or certain places, they're buying powders from other countries where they can make their product in their house. I mean, a lot of people making product in the house, getting a website and selling it. And then you have manufacturers that, let's say a banned substance, I'll use synephrine or bitter orange, also known as bitter orange or citrus aurantium. It's in a lot of pre-workouts. It's banned by the NCAA, NFL, Major League Baseball. It's not illegal. You can consume it. You're not going to go to jail for selling it. It's just considered banned because they think it's going to give it a performance advantage. So some manufacturers, they'll allow it in their facility. And let's say Andrus wants to make a pre-workout but doesn't want to have anything banned in there, and you don't have the money to get it certified. Well, if the company before you used a pre-workout or made their pre-workout and then they use synephrine and they didn't clean the machines, well, some of that can get into your product and cross-contaminate. That does happen. But you can avoid that as an athlete by making sure the products that you use carry the Certified for Sport certification through NSF. And as you mentioned, Major League Baseball, you can't have anything in those clubhouses that is not NSF for Sport. Now, that doesn't mean the product is well formulated, because there's some NSF companies that get the third-party certification and the product is terrible because it doesn't have enough of certain ingredients, but at least it's clean. And that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Okay, so that's definitely interesting. So NSF is something that you can look for on labels. So, but again, it doesn't really tell you the whole story. It could be for example, I think, Red Bull is an NSF certified product, and it's an energy drink. So there's certain kind of supplements that don't have a ton of ingredients, or they may not be efficacious. They're just safe for you to consume if you're an athlete playing in sanctioned sports by a sports organization. So that's just something to kind of look into that. So yeah, that's definitely interesting, because we need to obviously kind of look at all this data and all this information all together to make sure that you're making good decisions when it comes down to performance for those of you guys listening in. So whether it's supplements, first off, Tavis said, start to focus on your nutrition first, and then look at supplements on a second level. And at the same time, that when you do actually have a nutrition that is adequate, and then supplements can come into the picture, then it's being obviously very smart about the kind of things that you are consuming as part of that. Now, to kind of finish this off, Tavis, I would love to ask you some of your work and some of the things that you're doing with the Taylor Hooten Foundation. And can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with them, and what is this organization, and what is exactly that you kind of try to preach or you try to educate on? Because I know you kind of work very closely with them.
Yeah, no, it's a great organization. Coming up on 3 years with the organization, and they were founded back around 2003. Taylor, like a lot of young kids today, was looking for a way just to get better. And his coach advised him to, need to get a little bigger and stronger, but no resources were given to him on how to do that when asked. So he pretty much realized that half of the guys on his baseball team were using anabolic steroids. So He made that uneducated decision to do that a long time ago, and went through a lot of changes with his body. Now, prior to using steroids, here's a kid that never had any problems in school, no problems at home, starting to get verbally abusive, and then eventually, went to a psychologist after 6 months of using, admitted. They asked him to quit cold turkey, and then he got extremely depressed and unfortunately took his whole life. So the Hooten family set up a foundation to really try to focus on just the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and realized at the time over 2 million kids have admitted to using anabolic steroids at the high school level. And Major League Baseball stepped in. They were having some issues with steroid use at the time back in the early 2000s, and really developed a partnership to help kind of spread more awareness. So what we do now, we have education programs where we go into high schools and colleges and universities. And number one, we talk about the dangers of appearance and performance enhancing drugs. Two, we also talk about dietary supplement safety. And then we also do a sports nutrition program now as well, to talk about how to solve that problem with good nutrition.
Nice. Yeah, so education is key, man. That's definitely something big. So make sure you guys check out Tilden Hooten Foundation. I'm sure you can find them online on Google. But what about what you're doing right now, Tavis? Because I'd love for people to know, because by the way, Tavis has an amazing app. It's called Eat to Win app. And it's a great resource. It's a great resource for athletes. And honestly, not just athletes. I mean, I personally use it myself. Because it's a great way to kind of like create immediate meal plans that are personalized to you based on the information that you essentially put in. It calculates your nutrition calories and all that kind of information for you. And it literally spits out a meal plan that is personalized to you with a bunch of, and this, what I love about it is the fact that it's super simple. It's not crazy recipes. It's nothing like, too difficult to make. It's something simple for, like high school level athletes or just anybody to use. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the app and what should we expect and how can we kind of find out more about that and how we can download it?
Yeah, I mean, the brainchild of Eat to Win was really my partner is an athletic trainer. So we met at an athletic training conference about 7 or 8 years ago and just tried to figure out how do we, he's got a couple of kids that were playing at youth sports, and he manages a sports medicine program for high school, and everybody was coming to him saying, "Doc, how do I gain weight and how do I get bigger, stronger, blah, blah, blah." So we tried to figure out how do we develop a tool for athletes that changes their eating habits? How do we give them some kind of resource that can help improve behavior? And we just were looking at apps and looking at a bunch of different things and realized all the apps kind of did the same thing. They tracked what you ate, but then no one told you what to eat. And we constantly had people say, "Man, it would really be cool if I had a tool that could tell me what I need to eat based on how much I need." And I was like, well, I think we can build that. So talking to a few colleagues, I had so many meal plans I've built over the years for different athletes and clients that we took a lot of that information and we put it inside the app. I had a bunch of dietitians review it for accuracy. So Eat to Win is really kind of the first, and it's free. What's really even good about it is it's free. I mean, you can download it in your Apple and your Android store, and Eat to Win is eat the number 2 and win. So just really trying to provide a resource that can give anyone, athlete or not, the ability to understand how much they need based on their activity and based on their goals. So you can put your height, your weight, what your level of activity is, how many hours a week you're active, what your goal weight is. And we have restrictions on how much you can gain or lose. Like if you say, I want to gain, 20 pounds in a month or lose 20 pounds in a month, and it's going to reset that date. It's going to probably move it to like 3 months or 2.5 months or whatever the average is. And then give you a calorie goal. And then you click on meal plan. Now, right now we have the structured meals into like 7 times a day. We're going to also have an option for 5 times a day too soon. But you can click on breakfast and it'll have 25 options for you to choose from for breakfast. That's standard. If you click on vegan, we have vegan meals and we have vegetarian meals. Now, when I say meals, the meal might say 2 eggs, a slice of toast with peanut butter, and a cup of milk. That might be option 1. For the 500 calorie option. We have meal plans that start as low as 1,200 and go all the way up to 6,000. So we cover all bases. Nice. Everything's been reviewed. So, it's just a tool. It's not perfect. It doesn't really address, like if you have a medical condition or you're diabetic, we don't want to get that sophisticated, because if it requires a level of sophistication, then they should be sitting down with someone like you or myself or a dietitian or a sports dietitian to really help them customize that for their individual needs.
Nice. Yeah, I highly encourage you guys to download the app. I played around with it, and I definitely consider it really, really good. I recommend it to a lot of my athletes because it definitely provides a lot of options for people that are just clueless right now. So it's a really good start. Tavis, where can we find out more about you? And I know you have a website which is called My Sports Dietitian. And is there any specific places that people can find out more about you? How can they reach out to you if they kind of have specific questions that they would love to kind of find out more about what you're doing right now? How can people find you?
Yeah, My Sports D is our website. So mysports and just the letter D.com really focuses on a lot of the things we do over there at My Sports Dietitian. Taylor Hooton Foundation is taylorhooton.org. And Hooton is spelled Hooton. So it'll talk about a lot of the work we do when it comes to the appearance and performance enhancing drug side. So, and of course you can download the Eat to Win app at Eat to Win. Just go to Eat 2 and Win in your Play Store, and it's free. Also, a lot of cool features in there when it comes to just, nutrition monitor. So, if someone has a health coach or a nutrition monitor, they can invite them to join in and monitor what you eat. You don't have to track what you eat. We can take a picture of it and just upload it to your dietitian, and then they can kind of give you feedback. So we're a lot of cool stuff, and that's kind of where I am these days. And
nice.
Feel free to reach out. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to help them out.
Awesome. Yeah, Tavis is a great resource. So definitely, guys, reach out to him. But start off by downloading the app. I think that's a great place to start. So, Tavis, we have one last section, which I call it the rapid fire questions. That I say this all the time, but I totally stole this from Tim Ferriss. But I wanted to just ask you maybe a couple of different questions that you just need. Literally, you shoot whatever first thing comes to your mind, and you just go. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So first thing, what's your favorite type of exercise for yourself or that you like to recommend for anybody?
Man, I love the trap bar deadlift. I've just been infatuated with the trap bar deadlift lately. That's just something I can't say I love it, but I love trying to see my growth and my weight increase in that. So for some reason it's painful, but lately it's just been, I still squat, but I got away from just traditional deadlifts, and to me, it's a lot easier on my back. So I love trap bar deadlift as a weightlifting exercise.
I love that one. Yeah, that's a really good one. What's a favorite podcast, radio show, YouTube channel, or something that you usually listen to or you watch and that you would like to recommend for people to check out?
Oh man, I don't listen to any, to be honest with you. So I'm a music junkie. I play music, I play guitar. Works. So, I spend so much time reading enough about nutrition. I used to listen to a ton of podcasts, whether it was John Lee Dumas or Tim Ferriss, or, I'd go through a lot of different podcasts over times, whether it was business related or, sometimes I'd look at so much nutrition stuff. I don't want to hear any more nutrition. I think I'm kind of in that way now. I still have so much to learn. You can never not learn about nutrition.
But you get saturated.
Yeah, you sometimes you stay so busy. For me, the therapy is I'm a music junkie, so most of the time if I'm on YouTube, I'm listening to albums, or I'm old school, so I still have a record player and I buy albums. I've never downloaded a song in my entire life.
Nice. Yeah.
But anyway, it's more the music side.
Nice. What about a book or reading or anything, either could be nutrition related or not nutrition related, you like to recommend for people listening in?
Yeah, the last book I read was The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
That's a good one. Is it with Mark? What's his name?
It's on my bookshelf.
You can actually cousin this thing. So it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. So that's
there we go.
Yeah, it's that's a good one. Yeah, I had the little explicit thing on the podcast for people so they know that they have. There's going to be some explicit language in the podcast. That's great.
I went to my office real quick. Yeah. Mark Manson is the author.
Mark Manson is the right one. That's right. Yeah. So if you guys want to check out that book, I have it. It's a great book. Definitely teaches you a lot about what not to really care about in your life. That really is a waste of time. And it's just a waste of energy for yourself. So definitely check that one out. Last question for you, Tavis, before we close it up for tonight is going to be, if you were stranded in a desert, or not a desert actually, on a desertic island, and you could choose one food to have for the rest of your life in that island, what would you choose and why?
Oh, come on, man. You really had to do that?
Yes, I had to go there. And I've heard some crazy things from my guests in the past, dude. So trust me, like whatever you say, it may not beat it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not that crazy when it comes to food because I like so much stuff. And I'm probably not going to choose something that is just, I mean, man, I'll give you a few things, but if I had to probably choose one, and if I could make it, like just, could it be like a combination of food, like a casserole?
Sure, why not? Somebody said like a pokeball the other day. So
what?
A pokeball, like the raw fish, like with like a bowl or something.
Oh,
like
I'm
that.
not doing that. I'm doing like lasagna, or I'm doing steak, or donuts, or something that like. Well, and I typically, when I ask the question, I'm like, what would be considered your what would be the food that you would eat if you're on death row? Like if you have that one last meal, what's that last meal that you would always eat? And I'm thinking, good gosh, I would eat so many different things if I know I'm about to get executed.
You're like, just bring me the whole banquet.
I'd probably try to figure out how to die before they could execute me with like being a glutton. I don't know. I like so many different things, but to me, I'm Italian, so I love lasagna, like a good quality lasagna, because it's got so many different flavors in it.
Yeah, it's nutritious too. You get the carbs, you get the protein, you get the tomato sauce, counts as a vegetable. So.
Well, and I add onions and green peppers in mine too, so you get, I add some extra vitamins and nutrients too.
Nice, that's awesome, man. That's a good one. Definitely like that one. Cool, man. Well, those are all the rapid fire questions. We know how to find you. We know how to contact you, and thank you so much, Tavis, for being here today, man. It's definitely been a pleasure, and let's keep connecting, man, because I'm sure we can definitely do this again, and there's a lot more information that we can cover a little more in depth. Today was more about like kind of finding, so I kind of like generalize and speak broadly about, nutrition for youth athletes and athletes in general. Excuse me. So what things that people need to know about that. So definitely thanks a lot, man.
Thank you. I appreciate, you giving me the opportunity to be here and share some information and talk nutrition with you tonight. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Tavis, and have a great night, man.
You too. Have a good one.
You have been listening to Viva Nutrition Radio. Couple of things before you take off. If you enjoyed this episode, please, I would love to get your feedback. So feel free to drop down a review, and I will be forever grateful. Also, if you like this podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have it on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. And lastly, if you would like to receive a freebie from me, make sure you sign up for our newsletter at www.vive-nutrition.com. See you guys in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.